Hey, it's Trevor Tardif here, and I'm going to do a real estate market report for you from the Realtors Association of Edmonton using their most recent statistics, which is the month of July. We're just a few days into August now, and I've got the most recent statistics from the Realtors Association of Edmonton. So we're going to be looking at what's been happening in the Edmonton and Greater Edmonton area so that you can see exactly how the market's been shifting. All right, so let's jump right into it. At first, we're going to look at the Greater Edmonton area. So that includes Edmonton and a lot of the surrounding communities. So it's looking at the market as a whole, and then we'll switch over to Edmonton and then back and forth a little bit. So looking at the Greater Edmonton area, the selling price in July, the average price in all of Greater Edmonton was $399,000, which is down 1.7% month over month and up 2.3% year over year. So that's probably the biggest decrease we've seen on a month over month basis since the market started shifting in the Edmonton area. A lot of other markets across Canada have seen even bigger shifts than this before this month. It's the first time we're seeing a larger change in the average price in the Edmonton area. The median price was sitting at $379,000 for the month of July, which was down 1.6% month over month, but still up 3.3% year over year. I prefer the median price over the average price. My favorite's actually the benchmark price, which we'll look at later. But as you can see with both of those stats, we are down on a month over month basis, but we're still up year over year. So some of those losses in the last month or two are starting to eat in to the gains that we got earlier in the year, but we're still up for the year. Now, if we look at single family homes, the average price was $489,000, which is just down 0.9% month over month and up 5% year over year. So you can see it hasn't gone down as much as the market as a whole, and it's up more for the year. And the median price for single family homes was sitting at $448,000, which is down 1.6% month over month and still up 5.3% year over year. If we go over and look at condos, the average price was $229,000, which was down 3.7% month over month and down 4.4% year over year. So you can see condos, they don't have any gains from the last year. They're still down. And the median for condos was sitting at $212,000, which is down 4.1% month over month and down 4.4% year over year. Now for duplexes and row houses, the average price was sitting at $373,000, which was down 3.9% from last month, but still up 4.3% from last year. And the median price for duplex row houses was sitting at $363,000, which is down 3.9% month over month and up 5.6% year over year. Now, if we look at the number of new listings, in July, there was 3,593 new listings. Those are homes that are hitting the market for the first time. And you can see that that's down 14.8% from last month. So the number of new listings hitting the market is starting to slow down. And for the number of new listings we've had for the whole year, we're sitting at about 26,000, which is up 6.2% from last year. So we've had a little bit more listings this year so far than we did last year. Whereas if you look at sales for the current month in the Greater Edmonton area, we had 1,975 sales, which is a pretty significant drop of 23.7% month over month from June. So that's a pretty significant slowdown. And if you were one of my clients working with me, or if you happen to call me in the last month, I was telling a lot of people that I'm noticing a substantial slowdown in this last month. And now that we're seeing actual stats, it totally makes sense with the number of sales dropping by 23.7%. The sales are still okay. It's just a noticeable change, especially from the crazy market we were dealing with earlier in the year. And if we look at the number of sales for the year so far, we're sitting at 17,000, which is still down 10.3% from last year. Now, last year, I believe we broke records for the number of sales in the Greater Edmonton area, so it was a very strong year last year. This year, the way it started in the like February, March, April, we had really good sales volume, but it's slowed down substantially. So it's starting to look like we'll probably end up with less total sales this year than we did last year, even though we saw bigger price gains earlier this year than we did the year before. So it just goes to show how much the market has shifted, going from a really high sales volume to now actually being down for the year and seeing a steep drop in the sales volume from last month. Number of active inventory in the Greater Edmonton area was sitting at 8,325 at the end of July. And if we look at the high rollers, these are just the highest priced properties that sold, just sort of a novelty thing. For a single family home, it was not 5 grand, wow, 5 million, much different number there. And then for condos, it was $1,009,610. The most expensive duplex row house that sold was $834,900. And if we look at the days on market, the average days on market for properties to sell in the greater Edmonton area, you can see that we're pretty much on par for a lot of these compared to last year. So this year we're sitting at 33 for single family. It was 33 last year. Condos 52 right now. It was 54 last year. Duplexes and row house 34 right now versus 37 last year, and 39 right now for the whole market versus 39 last year. So we're on par in a lot of ways from last year. It just feels a lot different because it was so strong earlier this year, and so it feels different. But I have been telling a lot of people, like if you just look at the stats, we're not that far off from the type of market that we had in August of 2021 or July 2021. So it's still a pretty robust market. It's just not what it was before, and we're definitely noticing a shift. Now let's look at the same stats, but just for the city of Edmonton. So now we're zooming in a little bit. We're still looking at the big picture though, because it's Edmonton. If you wanted to get more specific insights into what exactly is going on in your market, whether you're looking at buying or selling a home, you should definitely reach out to me. You can reach me on my cell at 780-819-5508. You can either text me or call me at that number, or you can go to booktrevornow.com, select a time on my calendar, and then I will call you and we can hop on the phone and give you a free consultation. You can tell me a little bit about what you're planning on doing in the real estate market, and then I can give you some specific insights that'll help you make a good decision that's best for you. We're talking like general market information, market insights right now. I can give you way more specific information if you reach out to me. So let's take a look at the city of Edmonton. So the average price in the city of Edmonton was $399,000, which is down 0.7% month over month and up 2.4% year over year. So we're not seeing as much of a downward shift in the month over month average price, at least in Edmonton compared to the greater Edmonton area. So that could mean that Edmonton is performing a little bit better than the areas outside of Edmonton. They're not quite as insulated from some of those market shifts. And if we look at the median price, it was sitting at $375,000, which is down 1.3% month over month, but up 4.2% year over year. The average single family home price was $510,000, which is up 1.2% month over month and up 7.1% year over year. That's very interesting. I can tell you it definitely didn't feel like the prices were going up in single family homes. But again, we're looking at average, so that number can easily be skewed just by some more expensive homes selling. Later on, we'll look at the benchmark price and we'll see how that comes in. Now, if we look at the median price for single family homes, it was $460,000, which was at 0% month over month change, but up 7.1% year over year. So based on looking at the median, that could make it look like, you know, prices stayed flat, but they didn't really move up or down. Whereas if we look at condos, the average price was $224,000 in Edmonton, which was down 4% from last month and down 5.6% from last year. Whereas the median price for condos was sitting at $206,000, which is down 3.2% month over month and down 6.3% year over year. Now for duplexes and row houses, the average price was sitting at $378,000, which was down 4% from last month, but up 3.5% from last year. And the median was $375,000, which was down 1.3% from last month, but up 7.1% year over year. So obviously, single family homes, duplexes and row houses have been performing better than condos. The condo market was in a lot of pain before we even got into the boom here last year and earlier this year. But you can see the numbers are showing that the condo market's still definitely been a little bit hard on property values. Now, if we look at new listings in Edmonton, for the current month, which was July, we had 2,699 new listings for that month, which was down 14.2% from last month. So we are seeing a deceleration in the number of new listings. We've had 20,000 new listings so far for the year, which is up a little bit from last year. It's up 6.3%. Whereas if we look over at sales, we had 1,375 sales in July, which was a 24.8% drop from last month. I can tell you, definitely felt that in Edmonton. Could just tell there wasn't as many properties selling, and that was starting to cause the number of inventory to build up a little bit, which is really great for buyers. You're able to really take a breather. You typically didn't have to be worried about getting into a bunch of multiple offers. If you did, there was usually only 1 or 2 other offers. You weren't seeing 5, 10, or 15 other offers in July like we were earlier in the year. So welcome switch for buyers. And honestly, if you looked at my market update video that was looking across Canada, that was using the June stats, you can see how all markets across Canada almost universally have been slowing down. And it's largely because of the changes in interest rates. That's real estate is very sensitive to interest rate changes since most people are borrowing money to buy a property. If the cost of borrowing money goes up, it gets more expensive to buy a house, and people are very sensitive to what their monthly payment is. And so obviously, as that monthly payment starts to creep up because your interest rates are going up, that starts to change buying behavior. Sometimes that means somebody's buying a cheaper house than they would have before. And I would say generally it's going to cause the average prices to slip down. Doesn't necessarily mean that your house is losing that same amount of value if you see average prices slip down, because a lot of times it's just a decision that's being made to buy a cheaper house than they otherwise would have. I do think that makes the higher priced properties more sensitive to the changes in market. So if you're looking at properties that are over 500,000 or 600, 7, 8, 9, those properties, unless you're dealing with cash buyers, if someone's getting a big mortgage, that's going to make a bigger impact on them having those higher interest rates. Okay, so not sure if I talked about year-to-date sales, but we were sitting at 12,000 for the year, which was down 10.4% from last year as well. Total inventory in Edmonton was sitting at 6,604 at the end of the month, and all the high roller prices look like they're the same, except the Duplex row house, the most expensive one sold in Edmonton, was 700,000. Again, looking at the days on market, you can see right now for single family, we're sitting at 35 versus 33 last year in July. Condos were sitting at 50 versus 53 last year. Duplexes, 35 versus 36. And for the whole market, 40 versus 39. So still pretty much on par with where we were at last year. Now, hopping back to the greater Edmonton area, we're gonna look at the home price index. This is probably my favorite way of really looking at home values. The way they calculate it, it's a lot more accurate, and it's not as finicky as average or median price. So changes in the benchmark price, I would say, are a more accurate indicator of real changes in the value of homes in this market. So if we look at the greater Edmonton area, the benchmark price in July was $411,000, which is down 1.4% from last month, but we're still up 6.8% from last year. So I can't remember what we were looking at for the average prices, but the average prices didn't look like they were up that much. They didn't look like they were up 6.8% if you looked at the average price for the whole market, whereas when you're looking at the benchmark, it's saying you're up 6.8% for the year. But seeing a 1.4% drop, that is significant. I think that's the biggest one that Edmonton's seen. If you look over here on the right, you can see the benchmark price trend. We basically peaked in April this year, pretty much stayed flat in May, probably slipped just a little bit, slipped a little bit more in June, but we've seen a significant slip in July, going down 1.4%. Now that's nothing compared to what we're seeing in some of the other markets across Canada. Again, you can check out my market update video for Canada as a whole. We'll have one for the month of August using the July stats a little bit later this month. But you can see that Edmonton is starting to shift and see those differences in prices. It just didn't happen here as fast as it did in some of those other markets. Now, if we look at the average sales price, like here it was at $399, which was down 1.7% month over month. So the average price looked like it was down more than the benchmark price, but it said we were only up 2.3% for the year versus being up 6.8% on the benchmark price. So I'd be more tempted to go with the benchmark price when you're looking at real changes in value. Median was $379, which was down 1.6 from last month and up 3.3% from last year. So this is just basically just showing you how the home price index compares to the average and median sales price. Now, looking a little bit more specifically at specific property types, the single family benchmark price for the greater Edmonton area, just to remind you, this is all of Edmonton and the surrounding communities. Next, we'll look at just Edmonton. It was sitting at $465,000 for the benchmark price for single family homes, which was down 1.4%, but up 7.4% for the year. So you can see that their single family homes are up more than the whole market. For apartments, the benchmark price was $190,000, which was down not quite as much. It was down 0.9% from last month and staying basically the same from last year. And where townhouses were sitting at $253,000 for the month, which was down 1.4% for the month, but up 6.9% for the year. So you can see that it's down the same amount as single family homes and the market as a whole, but not up quite as much as single family homes for the year. Now, if we look at the same stats, but just for the city of Edmonton, so we're zooming into the city of Edmonton, the benchmark price for Edmonton as a whole was $403,000, which was down 1.5% from last month and up 6.4% from last year. Whereas comparing it to the average at $399, which was down 0.7% for the month, but up 2.4% for the year, and the median at 375, which was down 1.3% for the month, but up 4.2% for the year. So again, you're seeing that the home price index is showing a bigger gain year over year, but it is showing a bigger loss month over month, which is interesting. Now, if you look at the benchmark price trend over here on the right, it's the same thing. You can see that for Edmonton as well as Greater Edmonton, we did peak in April, and we've been seeing it start to slide now. But we're seeing a bigger shift just in this last month from June to July. Now, just looking at single family homes, the benchmark price was $471,000, which was a 1.5% month over month drop and a 6.9% year over year increase. Apartments were sitting at $186,000, which was down 0.5% from last month and down just a little bit, 0.3% from last year. And for townhouses, $244,000, which was down 2% from last month and up 7.5% from last year. So that pretty much wraps it up for the Realtors Association of Edmonton infographics, where they're showing what's happened in the last month in July. We're just a few days into August now. I hope this has been valuable for you. I will have a deep dive video coming out probably next week, where I'll be going even deeper into the stats, using the same source of stats, but for I've got a lot of infographics that I put together that can really show you a lot more about how the market's shifting. So make sure to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss that one when I release it. And again, if you'd like to get some more specific insights on what's going on in your local market, reach out to me. You can reach me at 780-819-5508 or go to booktrevornow.com, select a time on my calendar, and then I will call you. There's no obligation whatsoever. It's a free consultation. So I encourage you to reach out to me, and I can hopefully help set you at ease and help you navigate some of the ups and downs and confusion that's going on in this real estate market. So if you'd like to subscribe, click over here. And if you'd like to watch more market update videos, you can check out a playlist over here. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoy the video, and I'll see you on the next video.